What's up, Guardians, and welcome back, Warlocks. School's back in session today as we dive into one of the most powerful and most action-packed prismatic builds that's currently available. This will be a perfect build to take into any level of in-game content. It's easy to use, it's great at ad clear, it's great for boss damage, and it's got top-notch survivability. This prismatic build features the Necrotic Grips, an outstanding exotic that we've covered in the past, but never like this. And since the spirit of the necrotics can be found on exotic class items, we'll be looking at two different variations of this build. The Necrotic Grips comes with a grasp of the Devour intrinsic trait, and this causes your melees to poison enemies. These enemies will take continuous damage over the span of 10 seconds, and once those enemies have been defeated, they will spread that poison to nearby enemies. The amount of damage that's dealt by this poison will gradually increase. After each tick of damage, the poison's intensity will increase by 11% for the first 14 ticks, but for the final 5 ticks, it'll increase in increments of 41%, totaling out to be 1,366 points of base damage. Since the Prismatic subclass combines different elemental effects and abilities, the Necrotic Grips will add an extra layer of devastation into your gameplay. The Necrotic Grips also provides a passive benefit to any of the Weapons of Sorrow, granting those weapons a 30-point increase in airborne efficiency, and this includes exotics like the Touch of Malice, the Osteostriga, the Thorn, and the Necrochasm, and I highly recommend using one of these in your loadouts. I've actually found the Necrochasm to be one of the strongest right now. Even though exotic class items offer the spirit of the necrotic, I find the actual exotic to be a much better fit, and the biggest reason why is that the spirit of the necrotic does not scale its damage over time, meaning that it can only deal a maximum of 640 points of base damage, and it does not provide any benefits to the Weapons of Sorrow. But you would be able to pair the spirit of the necrotic with the spirit of the syntheseps, which would give your base melee damage a 165% increase in damage. There's also the spirit of the claw, which would grant an additional melee charge. So even though you won't deal as much poison damage, there's still a lot of benefits in using the exotic class item. And because of how we have this build set up, you'll be able to have success with whichever version of the necrotic that you decide to use. So let's go ahead and take a look at our prismatic class tree. We're using the Feed the Void and Lightning Surge aspects, and these will have some incredible synergy whenever used with the necrotic. Feed the Void is a void aspect that triggers Devour after any ability final blow. Whenever Devour is active, you'll gain health restoration and bonus grenade energy after each final blow. This will greatly improve your survivability as you're spreading poison across the battlefield. And with Lightning Surge, you'll be able to convert your powered melee attack into a burst of lightning that surges through enemies, causing them to become jolted. Jolted enemies will chain lightning damage to any nearby enemy, and since they'll also be poisoned, this will significantly increase the amount of damage that you're able to inflict onto a single target or a big group of enemies. Since we are using Arcane Needles, we will have as many as 3 lightning surges that we could perform consecutively. But we could also take advantage of the unraveling effects that Arcane Needles cause. Unraveled enemies take continuous strained damage over a span of 9 seconds. So by striking an enemy with an Arcane Needle, we will trigger unraveling and poisoning effects, and we could follow that up with as many as 2 back-to-back lightning surges, causing our enemies to take unraveling damage, poison damage, and lightning damage. And since we're also using cold snap grenades, we'll be able to freeze targets, locking them into place just before hitting them with a lightning surge, adding on even more damage because of the shattering effects. One of the biggest benefits in running the necrotic on a prismatic build is having Transcendency. When it's active, we're able to spam our abilities, which means we'll be able to inflict a ton of poison, lightning, and unraveling damage onto our enemies. And since we are using the Transference artifact mod, when we are transcended, we'll have a 10% bonus in damage getting applied to both our melee and grenade damage. When it comes to our choice in super, there's only one cohesive option when running Necrotic Grips, and that's the Song of Flame. This is a roaming super that lets us spam our solar melee and grenade abilities while still having the use of our weapons. Because of the Necrotic Grips, the Song of Flames Incinerator Snap will not only cause enemies to take scorch damage, but they'll also become poisoned, which will make this super much more potent. Another benefit of using Song of Flame is that when it's active, our kinetic and solar weapons will also apply Scorch, which would synergize very nicely with weapons of sorrow, like the Osteostriga or Thorn, since these also apply their own poisoning damage. So now that we know what abilities we're using, let's talk about how we can enhance them with the use of our prismatic fragments. We're using Facet of Awakening, which is going to cause elemental pickups to be created when rapidly defeating enemies with light or dark based energies. Since we've got Strand, Stasis, Arc, and Solar energies flowing through this build, we'll be able to generate Ionic Traces, Fire Sprites, Tangles, and Stasis Shards. Ionic Traces and Stasis Shards will provide the most benefit for us, as both of these grant bonus melee energy. Devour is already giving us up to 20% bonus grenade energy on every final blow, so having bonus grenade energy off of Fire Sprites and Ionic Traces will see us having our Cold Snap grenades just as often as our powered melee. To be able to add to the elemental pickups that we're able to create off of Facet of Awakening, we are using the Elemental Siphon artifact mod, and this is going to create additional elemental pickups whenever we rapidly defeat enemies with our solar or kinetic weapons. We're also using Facet of Courage, which is going to give our light-based attacks 10% bonus damage whenever used against targets who are under the effects of a darkness debuff, which makes it even more beneficial for us to use an Arcane Needle or a Cold Snap grenade just before coming in with a Lightning Surge. Since our Lightning Surge will put us right into the belly of our enemies, the Facet of Protection will be a great fragment to have active, so that we'll have a 15% bonus in damage resistance whenever we are surrounded. And when we are Transcendent, that bonus will get bumped up to 32%, making us damn near indestructible. To improve our survivability even more, we're using the Galvanic Armor artifact mod. So when we are amplified, we'll gain an additional 30% bonus damage resistance, which will get triggered whenever performing lightning surges, and this will stack on top of Facet of Protection. With all the elemental pickups that we'll have, we should be able to get our abilities back pretty damn fast. But just to maximize things a bit further, we are using the Facet of Balance. So when we rapidly defeat enemies with light-based energy, we'll get 10% extra melee energy. And when we defeat enemies with darkness energy, we'll get 10% extra grenade energy. And with our abilities having bonus uptime, we'll be able to get to our Transcendency buff even faster. Our final fragment is a bit of a toss-up. I like having Facet of Dawn so that we can have Radiance, giving our weapons a 25% increase in damage, along with the ability to pierce barrier shields. But since this can be obtained by using the Radiant Orbs artifact mod, you might find it to be more beneficial to use the Facet of Solitude. This is going to cause enemies to become severed after landing consecutive precision shots. Severed enemies are pretty much neutered, dealing out 40% less damage, and this does count as another darkness debuff, ensuring that we would always be able to get that extra 10% bonus damage that Facet of Courage is providing. We are using the Shield Crush artifact mod, so we'll be able to add in extra ability regeneration and extra ability damage whenever we have an elemental buff. Whenever we have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, we'll have 25% bonus melee energy and damage. And when we are amplified or radiant, we'll have 25% bonus grenade energy and bonus grenade damage. We're not currently set up to have Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or a Void Overshield, but if we were to be using Void weapons that come with destabilizing rounds and Repulsor Brace, we could easily trigger a Void Overshield so that we could get that bonus melee damage and regeneration. And with weapons in mind, let's talk about the best weapons to use with this build. We've mentioned the Weapons of Sorrow already, but there's a few other exotics that would provide us with a lot of benefits. The Navigator would provide Woven Mail, and it would cause enemies to become severed, which would create some amazing synergy for us. There's also the Manticore, or Vexcalibur, which would give us a Void Overshield. There's also the Monte Carlo, which would be a great option towards regaining our melee energy, but overall it's still kinda weak. When it comes to legendary weapons, those that have Pugilist or Grave Robber will go great with this melee-centric build. And to that same token, shotguns that come with Trench Barrel or 1-2 Punch would be a terrific option, since lightning surges will put us at point blank range. Since our main exotic weapons are kinetic, then using energy weapons that have Disruption Break would give those kinetic weapons bonus damage after breaking an opponent's shield, which is why we are using the explosive personality Wave Frame Grenade Launcher. Now that we've addressed our class tree, artifact mods, and weapons, let's go ahead and take a look at the armor that completes this build. The main character stats that we want to focus on starts with Resilience, which is going to give us up to 30% damage resistance. It would also be wise to focus on Recovery, so that our class ability regenerates quicker, and our health regeneration will kick in faster. We've already got a ton of bonus ability energy getting dispersed with this build, so focusing towards Discipline and Strength won't be as necessary, but it would still be beneficial, since it'll reduce the base cooldown time of our grenade or melee. We've got several armor mods equipped to help generate extra ability energy. We have the Hands-On Helmet mod to help us get our super energy back faster. We have Momentum Transfer, Absolution, and Outreach to give us bonus melee energy. And to give our Weapons of Sorrow bonus damage, we are using Kinetic Surge mods. And to be able to trigger that bonus damage, we are using Helmet Siphon, Heavy Handed, and Reaper mods. These are going to create orbs for us, and those orbs are going to give us armor charges. And while those armor charges are active, we'll have a 10% bonus in damage with one Surge mod equipped, and as much as a 17% bonus when 2 are equipped, making this an even more overpowered build to use towards ad clear or boss damage. So between our class tree, our artifact, and our armor, we're going to have rapid regeneration of all of our abilities, including our Transcendence. We'll have bonus damage to both our abilities and weapons. And because of Feed the Void, we'll always have a source of health regeneration, making this Prismatic Necrotic build even more potent and a much stronger build than we've ever seen the Necrotic Grips get used with. And with that said, we've now come full circle on this amazing new Prismatic Warlock build. An easy to use build that will bring you a ton of success in whatever activity you're jumping into, whether that be a Grandmaster, a Lost Sector, a raid, or a dungeon. So if you haven't given the Necrotic Grips a test run with the new Prismatic subclass, then I think it's about time you do so. And once you have, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this Prismatic build, the Necrotic Grips, the spirit of the Necrotic, and the current state of Destiny. So let us know what you think down in the comments below. If you need any help putting together this build for yourself, then be sure to check out the Mobalytics link that's down in the description, where you'll find this and several other top tier in-game builds. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran who's just looking for a new place to call home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's also down in the description and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.